Hello, my name is Matthew, and today we will be talking about speeding and distracted driving. While talking, I will have the dash cam footage from our Dodge Caravan, a 2005 model, on our trip back from St. Helens to Portland. Through the video, there are several things that you can look out for, such as when we're down in Scappoose business area with the school area to our left. There is a time right in front of the truck trailer that has hay in it where a pedestrian is blitzing across the street while our lanes have a green light. An obvious one would be throughout the video there are several bicyclists on the right hand side of the road doing some marathon that happens quite regularly on Highway 30. Speeding is purely just going faster than the posted speed limit. Even 1 mile an hour is obviously speeding, but with everyone growing up and learning 5 you're fine, 10 you're mine, or as they taught me in California, 9 you're fine, 10 you're mine, for how cops will react to how fast you're going. Those rules of thumbs that people taught me is wrong. A Class D violation of the speed is 1 to 10 miles over the speed limit. A Class C is 11 to 20 miles over the speed limit. Class B is 21 to 30, and Class A is any speed 31 and over. These speed limits are set originally by design. When the roads are planned and made, engineers and inspectors decide what is the fastest and safest someone can travel on this road. From there, the jurisdiction to designate the speed limit is passed on to other groups, such as cities, towns, counties, and they decide if that is safe enough or if it needs to be lowered. After they're done, then the jurisdiction gets broken up even more into what is in that section of the city, town, or county. And even then, even businesses can take jurisdiction over the road if there's something of concern. And they can have an inspector come out, see it, check it, and they can petition to have the speed limit changed even further. A good example is school zones. A school zone can post a speed limit that is much lower than the surrounding area, and that is for the protection of the children. Legally, they have to have those speed limits posted. Most times it's designated with signage of school zone, a speed change when the lights are flashing, or a time zone of when the lower speed is in effect. And as far as I have driven around all these years, they have met those requirements each time. I even ran across a country-like area where it was 40 miles an hour, then suddenly dropped down to 20 because right around the corner was an elementary school. To be put bluntly, that looked like it was in the middle of nowhere. Nonetheless, they had the proper signage, and so that is the legal speed limit for that area. Distracted driving is where you even have 1% of your attention pulled away from the road. A driver's one job is to drive safely. Speeding, eating, playing around on your phone, they're all distractions from operating a vehicle safely. There are many different forms of distractions that everyone knows of, but there are also many forms that people don't even realize. All 5 of your senses can be targeted for a distraction. Your brakes squealing, a child screaming, a funny joke, or a conversation on a phone or in person. All sounds that pull your attention away from the road. A good example of this is why when you're trying to find a certain house when you're traveling somewhere new, there's the joke of, hold on, let me turn down my radio so I could see. People don't turn down the radio so they could see better. They turn it down to lessen the distraction of a booming song. Smell is another distraction. How often can you pass by a skunk that got ran over and ignore it? There are times when you do, and even then, as you're passing by, your thoughts go from, oh, I'm driving, to, oh, that smells bad. It's still 1% of your attention pulled from the road, and that 1% goes to being distracted. Taste. Sometimes the smells are bad enough that you could taste it. Other forms are simply just eating food, drinking drinks. You're more attentive to your taste buds when you're eating something delicious. Or if you're just eating to get food in your belly, there's also the cases of you trying to make all the food land in your mouth instead of all over your nice clothes, all over your nice car. And when that food drops, most people have the bad tendency to look down to see where that food went. The same thing for when you're smoking. Part of the cherry knocks off the cigarette and falls into your lap. And then the concern becomes, oh, is my crotch on fire? Oh, is my car burning? Sight. There are several things to look out on the road. The clouds, the birds, the trees, the countryside, infrastructure, different designs to different buildings when you're sightseeing. And then there's all the advertisements. For those of you who play video games, you know how annoying it is for pop-up screens to block part of your view when you're in the middle of a game, or movie watchers, when they stream them, can be immediately annoyed by an ad popping up in the middle of a movie. Pulls your attention away from what you're doing every time. On the topic of when you're watching TV and get those breaks, it's actually a good opportunity for a bathroom break, in my opinion, since I grew up on ads during TV time. touch is a scary distraction. When you have a sliver in your hand, when someone you don't remember is in the car or even know is in the car touches your shoulder, or a kid in the back seat suddenly yanks your hair. They can easily become hazardous distractions, because if you have a sliver in your hand, your main goal is to get that out of your hand, or at least in my experience it is. I've learned to just bite through the skin to rip it out so that it's done and over with. But I've had a few friends who have almost gotten into wrecks for that reason. They were too focused on getting something out of their hand and almost missed their turn. The fact of someone you don't know is in the car can be a very scary thought, but that example was merely based off of all the movies and TV shows. I've never ran into a person myself who has had that scenario happen. They've always known who was in the car at what time. If anything, it's happened more often that parents have forgotten that their children are still in the car. Silly, and a lot better than the vice versa if the parent forgot to put their kid in their car. But that's not here or there today. That's something for someone else to explain. In both cases of distracted driving and speeding, there's a lot that can happen. Something from getting lucky and getting away with it, which is why people still do it to this day, or something as light as getting a traffic ticket. I myself have gotten a few speeding tickets over the years. Then the high risk scenarios, it can lead to someone dying. Has led to people dying. Thousands of people every year hurt, injured, or killed because someone was going too fast or someone just wasn't paying attention. Both inside and outside the car. Yes, while people inside the car are protected, if it's a light crash and no airbags deploy, they're perfectly physically okay. But there's still the mental trauma that comes with things like hitting a person, hitting a dog. And bringing up the fact that people in the car are protected, the next subject to talk about real quick is what a vulnerable person is. A vulnerable person is literally someone who is not protected. A pedestrian is on foot. They have no shell around them. Same with a bicyclist. If a car hits them, they have nothing to protect them from the impact. They're met with metal, and then they're met with pavement. There are very few times that someone is going to walk away from that with minor scrapes and bruises, compared to the majority of the time where they have to be hospitalized for minor or severe injuries. And then the question is are they going to leave the hospital? A motorcyclist can also be considered a vulnerable person because they have no walls to protect them in the event of a collision or a crash. 9 times out of 10, in any incident, even if someone jumps out in the middle of the road, the driver of the car, van, truck, or semi will automatically be at fault because they are safe and protected. Your attention should have been 100% on that road. Because 9 times out of 10, there's some way of seeing it before it happens. When I was stationed in California, I had to take my driver's test twice. I failed the first time because I didn't turn my head obvious enough for the staff member at the DMV to see me look in my mirrors. I just turned my eyes to look in my mirrors. I positioned them perfectly so I could. They failed me. The second time I took my driver's test, on the last strip of road right before the DMV, we were passing a bunch of parked vehicles next to a grass field with a chain link fence in between the sidewalk and the field. And right in the middle of the road, I suddenly slam on my brakes, scaring my tester. He immediately snapped at me, wondering what I was doing. And then right after he got one question out, a vulnerable person on a motorized scooter that was quite obviously handmade had bolted between two cars out in the middle of the street right in front of us. He then looked at me and asked, how did I know that person was there? I had looked out my driver window to see what was to my left, and I noticed a person wearing a helmet keeping up with us. And then he got ahead of us, and I saw him suddenly make a right hand move, so I knew he was coming out into the road. If it's not obvious, I did pass my test that day. Which brings me into crossing the street. Yes, there are designated areas for a person to cross the street called crosswalks. Anything within 100 feet of a crosswalk is jaywalking. It irritates a lot of drivers when people suddenly just step out into the road. But no matter what, the vulnerable person takes priority. They have right of way at all times. When I attended Nurses Talk Tough, they were telling me even a driveway to driveway crossing the road is a designated crosswalk. And the reason for explaining that is not every street corner is wheelchair capable. Sometimes pedestrians don't have any choice but to use a driveway to get off the curb. Nonetheless, we are civilians, we are not the police. We can be as angry as we want with jaywalkers. We just have to make sure to stop for them. Bicyclists too, especially at corners and intersections. Growing up, nobody taught me to keep an eye in my right side view mirror for bicyclists coming up behind me. And it's become a bad muscle memory to just look left and right only for walkers crossing the street. Over the last year, riding around town, doing trips with my partner, I've been working very diligently with her to keep an eye out for bicyclists and pedestrians. There were a few times I was not present where a bicyclist had actually startled and irritated her because they were either riding in the wrong direction or flying out of nowhere from a blind spot. For the many times I have been with her, it has been very helpful to have me keeping an eye out for these, because I've actually yelled at her to stop, stop, stop during a right-hand turn, and immediately a bicyclist came by the windows when she said, "What?" Realizing why I was yelling stop, I was then thanked for preventing an accident from happening. We gotta do better at checking our mirrors, looking to see where bicyclists could be, because even though they weren't there 3 seconds ago, doesn't mean they can't come flying out of nowhere. And the phrase of keeping your head on a swivel can help protect them in regards to their life, and you in regards to legality. Bicycle lanes are there to help with keeping the bikes further away from where cars are, but they're not everywhere. More often as of late, I've seen a new traffic style where they have a green strip of pavement for the bicyclists to follow, leading up to a flagged area up front that is green, marked obviously for bicyclists. This was a change that nobody notified me. It just started happening, and I read up on it and found it was for bicyclists, so that they can get to the front of the line, so that they have a safer way to cross an intersection, make a right-hand turn. Another thing to notify about is stop signs and bicycles. I grew up, again, being told one thing, but in actuality it's something else. The phrase, bicyclists have to follow the rules of the road, is only 90% true. Because they are a vulnerable person, they have right of way in several facets. But one important detail no one taught me was stop signs are only yield signs for bicyclists. Everyone I've driven with or driven around has road raged about a bicyclist just blowing through a stop sign intersection, and I have been one of those persons thinking that the bicyclist is in the wrong. Especially when there's been a few times where I'm in the middle of the intersection and one of them almost gets clipped by me by just blowing through a stop sign. Again, they're only yield signs for a bicyclist. If you're stopped at a stop sign, they can go right through without hesitation. However, as a yield sign, if you're already in the intersection, that means they should yield the right of way to you. Unfortunately, there are several cases where the bicyclist does not care enough to actually yield for their own safety. As I shared earlier, there are a lot of things that can happen in a collision, and in most cases, a pedestrian is not going to walk away from it. And when the crash is hard enough because someone's doing 60 right into a building, it can turn catastrophic for anyone in that building near that spot. Say the driver hit a flagpole instead. The reason it could be catastrophic, even though if they're wearing their seatbelt, no one else got hurt. they have an airbag deployed. The airbag is only there to hold your body against the seat, keep you in position. Same with the seatbelt. It can only protect the outside of you. It does not stop your internal organs from following Newton's law. An object in motion stays in motion until an opposite or equal force acts against it. So your brain in your skull is still going at 60 miles an hour until it hits the inside of your skull because your head is stopped up against the airbag. Same with all your other guts and innards and all that. They're all being strained in a forward motion at 60 miles an hour while your body is trying to hold it at 0 suddenly. On the topic of airbags, they are useless by design without a seatbelt. They may deploy quickly, but they are designed to work with a seatbelt, because as it deploys at up to 200 miles an hour, if suddenly the car flips nose end over its nose, your body could slip over the airbag as it's inflating. If you're T-boned by someone going extremely fast and you're not wearing your seatbelt, you can slip out the window or down onto the gear shifter. There are even some cases where people slip down to the floorboard where the pedals are. It's also why children are not allowed in seats with airbags, such as the front. And unfortunately, for the same reasons that shorter adults have greater injuries during airbag deployment. There's also the factor of the angle of deployment versus the angle of collision, as I just said. Getting hit from one side or something else happening can change how well an airbag helps you. If you only have the airbag in the steering wheel and the vehicle rolls over, there's nothing to protect your arms, there's nothing to protect your head. And that's why newer designs have multiple airbags per section of the car. Airbags are also a one and done. Once it's used, it's garbage. As the bag rapidly inflates, the fibers are stretched and frayed. And if it's ever tried to be used again, there's a great risk of that bag tearing during a redeployment. And there are some cases of an airbag having enough gas, chemicals, that it can actually redeploy a second time. And you've already been hit by something going up to 200 miles an hour at you. That causes some physical trauma. And if it goes off again due to some poor design, that's going to lead to even greater injuries. That's why you are not to reuse a used airbag. There are several ways that we can prevent it. The easiest ones, just go the speed limit and keep your eyes on the road. But obviously, since even today there are so many injuries and death due to speeding, due to distracted driving,